It does. So I think I saw in some of the materials, well, it was just said earlier tonight that this represents basically a $500 million investment in the city of Snoqualmie, right? And so I'm assuming that's not the investment of the development group. That's not what that number represents. So whenever I work in lending, and so whenever we take on a project, we have certain criteria, and so those are ratios, right? Very simply put, so there's ratios there that we look for. So if an applicant meets those ratios and requirements, then they're financed. I have to imagine you have certain ratios that you're looking at to say, we think this project is going to require an investment from your group of X, or your group and partners or builders or whatever that are going to come in. Can you speak to what some of those measures are that you look at when you look at a project like this and say, let's say it's $200 million, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's $200 million that is represented there. How much of that comes from the backing of your group? How much of that comes from builders? That may not be the right question, but I hope you know what I'm getting at. There's got to be some sort of ratios that you're looking at cash on hand or resources on hand to execute on a project like this.
Sure. I think it's important to think about the stages of the project. So right now, it's not a financeable project. There was no one who would lend in this project when we face uncertainty as to whether we'll get annexation. The landowners, there are 30-some parcels in this. The landowners have come together. Many of them, enough of them to move this project forward. At this point, they have banded together in a line, but they all have personal circumstances and aging and life changes and things like that. So it's a unique point of time, and if this annexation were not to go forward, we would lose everything that we put into it. There's no lenders would kind of lend into that. Does that make sense? So as we move to the next stages and we get through annexation and we get to the point where we actually have to start to execute on the land contracts and pay more than earnest money, and we have to start thinking about infrastructure development and all the impact statements and all that kind of stuff, we will have partners. And so we will either have equity partners, and again, that's where the Snoqualmie partners have experience bringing in equity partners. So at this point, it's still not financeable with debt, right? And that's what you're talking about with ratios, I think. And then as along that spectrum, we will pick up one or more large builders. And these builders are public companies traded. You see they have hundreds of millions of dollars of cash on their balance sheet. They have financing sources. They have Wall Street financing sources. They have all kinds of ability to raise money. And you can see in their financial statements, they list all of the projects that they have. And they list the stages and the phases. And these are multi-year projects. And one of the reasons they do them in phases is because it's physically challenging you can't just go build 800 homes all at once. But the other thing is economically it makes sense to build a few and sell them, get commitments, and then those become financeable, and you continue along that path. That's why it has to be a viable project to begin with, something that the market needs. We believe the market needs active adult housing, and that the market will support that now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And so, as we move along the spectrum, we have adequate financing. As we move up, we don't know which builder or multiple builders will be our partners in the end, but there are lots of them that we've talked to, and they're all very interested, and they're all highly capable.
I think just one last clarifying question. So that financing step, whether it be equity or debt, so that's a step that is taken after the annexation is complete. Okay. All right, that's fine.
So I have a couple follow-ups to I'm sorry, Councilman Snow. We're all the way. Did you have any questions?
I'm not all right, so I've got one. I'd like to see you list your $10 million in capital improvement, which you assume is over to do most. I'd like to see a breakdown of that $10 million. It seems a little. You're talking a bridge, a light. These things add up pretty quick. The other one, I guess, in your financial analysis, did you include life cycle maintenance depreciation of this infrastructure in the analysis? Is that in here? I read through it and I didn't see it.
I guess we'll answer the last question first, and then we'll come back to the infrastructure.
Yeah, so right now, we would assume that parks and roads would be developed as per the development mitigation. There's no plan so we don't really have any idea like how many lane miles, what do they look like yet. So we use some rough appropriation of the city's current sort of maintenance, operation, and preservation costs on its current sort of city assets. And so we plug in basically what you would be comparable as a sinking fund. So we're basically programming in dollars, even though that's new infrastructure, maintenance will show up for 5-10 years. We're programming and allocating those costs. So yeah, we are sort of accounting for some life cycle costs for those facilities.
Yeah, help me out later.
Yeah, no, any questions you guys have, that's what happened.
And on the related infrastructure question, I'm curious if your analysis on your sunk costs took those roads all the way to the connectors, for example, 80th all the way to Railroad Avenue, or all the way up to the North Bend Way, or if you just sort of analyze it to the edge of your development?
This is Eric Woodbury with DSF Consulting Engineers. We analyzed and through most of the numbers in there for the major things in the infrastructure are included for on-site. We did not take the roads all the way down to downtown. We didn't know the level of improvements necessary, so we couldn't put a number to it. We don't know if necessarily we will have to construct a bridge in the southeast option for that alignment. If we can't control that, that alignment, then we can't do it. But we are pretty confident that we can, that there's enough support within the annexation area to get adequate access for the development through at least 2 access options. So we threw some money for a light, we threw some money for a bridge. The details of that are coming once we know, which bridge, where it's located, how far the span has to be. We understand it's going to be fish-friendly passage, but until we have some more analysis and some more surety of where we're going, we threw some big numbers out there for some of those improvements.
So you assumed a bridge.
We assumed one bridge.
Okay. So help me out then. Where is the maintenance cost of that bridge in this analysis? I see.
It shows up in the public works segment on the costs.
The other question I have back, finance, there was, when we talked about real estate tax and the growth in excess of 1%, help me out because the terminology is throwing me here. We're still limited to 1%. You're just saying we will get the added assessed value of the property.
No. So your levy, so the amount you can collect is the sum of the 1% growth plus the amount of new construction add-on value. So the amount of new construction any given year times your previous year's levy. That allows most jurisdictions to grow their levy in excess of that. So in the county overall, most jurisdictions during boom times can grow it up to 10%, and in some recession years about 2 to 3%. So if you look at Snoqualmie historically, you can see that trend as well. So the reason it's so big in Snoqualmie is your current expense levy is $2.78 per $1,000 of assessed value. That's roughly twice as much in many cities in King County. So for comparison, the current expense levy in Seattle is $1.13. So you can kind of see on a dollar adjusted basis, you get twice as much yield on the new construction bump for your property tax levy than the jurisdiction with a lower levy.
So let me ask you the simple one. So then is there
Councilmember Hall, would you-
I'm sorry. Is there then potential for somebody who is outside the development to see a levy increase of greater than 1%?
You mean a taxpayer?
Yes.
So everyone's taxes is a determination. Once you figure out the levy, you figure out how much assessed value you have, and then the rate is calculated, because in Washington you have to have equal sort of taxation on the property tax. So to the degree that anybody's paying more or less taxes is really a function of their assessed value. So how much does their assessed value go up relative to everybody else's in the community? If that makes sense. So property tax is a big allocation based on your assessed value once you determine how much a city can collect. We have a goofy property tax system.
I have no argument with that. I yield.
Okay.
So you're looking at building 800 units, which would add, I think you quoted about 1,300 residents. So that would actually be 10% of our current population, and that could change the overall demographics. So I'm wondering, why are you building 800 units? Why would you build 400 or something that seems a little more reasonable?
I'm just looking to see which of us is best. I'll start, and anyone let me know if you want to chime in. I think the 800 units is a factor of what, in talking to these national active adult builders, what they think is the right size project to bring in on this property in this community. So that's where that number came from. It includes a financial component, because you have to be able to know that your investment is going to yield yield enough revenue to cover all of the costs and put the builder where they need to be at the end of the day. So there's a financial component to that, there's a community fit to that. And the other thing is, I'll put the realtor address cost of raw land. But the other thing is, as they develop their thinking about this, another reason that it seemed like a good fit again for Snoqualmie was that knowing that you have a very young community and very high demand on your schools, that this would be a way to grow the city that would not replicate that same high demand level on your schools. That you could grow with an active adult community and not generate impacts on the schools. The other way that it seemed like a good fit is that there are much lower traffic generation rates for an active adult community than if there were 400 active adult and 400 regular, there'd be higher traffic impacts than with 800 active adult units in the community. So it seemed a good fit because it was responsive to some of the pressure points in this particular city. It was a good financial fit. There's large demand in the region for it, and my client here could probably fill out if there are additional considerations, but that was sort of the bulk of it, and it seemed like the thing to carry the annexation proposal forward.
So my mother's 90 years old. She gets around a lot. So are there traffic studies? To the mic again. Sorry, Fuzzy. I mean, when we make the statement that an active adult community has less traffic, are we citing specific studies in reserve it, or there are traffic analysis standards we're applying?
Yes, we are.
How do we do that?
I'd like to ask our traffic consultant, Kevin Jones, to address that.
And the studies I cited last week are in what's called the Trip Generation Manual. It's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And it's a compilation of trip generation studies throughout the country based on different land use types. And so when we make the statement that senior adult housing generates fewer trips per unit on average than more traditional housing, that conclusion is drawn directly from that manual.
Just for clarity of reference, when we talk about measuring traffic impact, the city's adopted standard like PSRC and every other city in the region, we're looking at PM, peak hour trip generation, usually PM peak hour. So if someone says, my 90-year-old grandmother drives a lot for lunch, that's not a trip that's typically picked up in those studies, because what we're looking at is the worst 15 minutes of the worst 2-hour period of the day, which is the afternoon commute period, typically.
So, and you mentioned that this project would have little impact to schools. I'm thinking that population to schools.
Correct.
Would this development pay school impact fees for construction purposes then? Question mark.
Under our current ordinance, it would. I'm going by memory, and Ann may chime in. I don't believe there's an exemption for 55 and older. It's just has 2 rates for a single family and multifamily. Multifamily just defined to include townhomes and a couple of other housing types, but there's not currently, that I'm aware of, an exemption.
I'm not aware of an exemption in the city's ordinance. I believe King County does have an exemption. And there is, because your ordinance is under the state's impact fee statute, you probably do have a provision where if someone has disparate impacts or a different level of impact, that they could come to the city and try and demonstrate that. We have not, today we have not asked for an exemption from that. Again, that's the type of thing that would be addressed later on, but we are not opposed to paying a school impact fee. That may be something that might want to be negotiated by the builder. If they actually have a prohibition on allowing any residents under the age of 18 in the housing development, they may want to talk to the city about what is the appropriate rate to apply.
Council, we're coming up on 2:15. Bob, you only had one question earlier on, you probably have the fewest. Did you want to ask another one before I maybe give Sean, who was chomping a bit for a final question?
I would, let's talk about roads for a little bit. Can we pull up a map that shows their proposal of the roads?
The one you guys drew up that I requested, thank you for doing that, that actually shows landmarks and where they're related, might actually be super helpful on that.
The next one, I think is the one up. No, that's the one.
Not
up.
that. That one shows the parking not being bulldozed.
This is Eric Debris again. Did you want me to discuss this one, or?
Actually, go back to the one before that. I want to touch my questions on that. I mean, ingress and egress, if this is a development, would bear upon the marketability of it. The ingress and egress bears upon city traffic and congestion, which is a big concern for all of us. And the most logical first road would be Douglas. Essentially coming down from the police station to connect to this. I'm curious as to how viable all of those roads are. With respect to Douglas, in the presumed number of people that you have interested in this, do you have property owners willing to sell property that would allow that Douglas road to go in? Are those some of your people who want to sell, who would allow that to proceed?
So the question is, do we have people willing to sell all of this land? And at this point, we're not required to have that, and we've had discussions. We have a number of people who are willing to sell and who have signed up to sell. We have a number of people that we're talking to that are considering. People that were here last time and testified, some of them may even be considering a possible sale. So everyone has lots of questions, and it's good, and that's why we like to have the dialogue. We'd like to have a continued dialogue. And people may make a decision to sell later that haven't made a decision to sell now. We think we have enough to do everything that we're talking about. And there may be instances where a particular landowner doesn't want to sell it, and we may have to move things a little bit, and some of those things have to be worked out as we go forward.
So a critical road would be a connection to North Bend Way that would connect to I-90. And you say you have allowed for a bridge that would have to go over that deep gully and that creek that runs through that. We have to build a bridge there, but I'm just wondering whether there are extraordinary challenges to do that road, which is very appealing to me, because that would relieve some of the traffic that we're so concerned about.
Sure, we understand that. If I could just flip back for a second. The map up here now is from the city's comprehensive plan, the transportation element. And all of the roads that we're showing in our conceptual site plan are shown here. So the extension of Douglas Boulevard into the site, the extension, or Douglas Street, sorry, the extension of Fisher Avenue into the site, the northern alignment option and the southern alignment option are all shown in our conceptual site plan. However, we're not sure that all are necessary to support our development. We're certain that we have enough support from property owners to provide adequate access to the development whether that's 2 options, 3 access options, which of those 2 or 3, we're not entirely sure yet, because we haven't even gotten to this, over this first step of 10%. But what we're showing for access is right in the comprehensive plan. We didn't dream this up, this was part of the city's vision.
And to reiterate what you said before, your plan, if you were to connect the downtown and you don't get to Railroad Avenue, you sort of get to the bus barn, that connects to downtown, and then you're sort of done, but there's a substantial piece there that if you go from the bus barn to, there's not a straight shot from the bus barn to Railroad Avenue. You'd have to, you and the city would have to do something creative, and that's expensive probably for you and the city.
Correct. The city's comprehensive plan has also identified in the transportation facilities plan other off-site improvements that are planned in the future. And whether those are the developer's burden or the city's burden, that's all yet to be discussed.
Okay.
Can I ask a real quick follow-up question, Bob? So on the ones that,
Yeah, go ahead.
You should have shown that.
Go for it. I'm the most junior person here.
No, it's not that, John. I'm gonna give latitude to finish up the topic. I assume you're gonna pivot to another topic.
can't wait for that.
Should not.
Just real quick, just to make sure I'm clear on it, the roads that are connecting to current county roads, you did not anticipate or plan, or I'm not even sure what the right word is, any improvements to those roads, correct?
We plan access to those points of connection because that's within the control of this annexation. We did not do any studies or analyses to see what condition all of those roads were in off-site yet because we haven't gotten to that point.
So those are substantial costs that we have been analyzed, and obviously the traffic isn't addressed or unless it actually connects to something. Correct. Okay. Councilman Sunwell, you've been exceedingly patient. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, you assume I have another question? All right.
You can focus on your last 45 questions.
So in the letter that Darren, raise your hands, I can't remember which one. Okay, thank you. So in the letter you sent, email you sent to all of council on Friday the 28th in the afternoon, the second paragraph, and let me just give the backdrop. One of the things, there's a handful of things that would cause me to vote no at the 10% level. I think there's a lot of upside to vote yes to get more information, because it binds us to absolutely nothing. But one of the things that would cause me to vote no up front would be how I feel about the sustainability of the developer. In sentence 2, you said members of our group have assembled land for development of over 1,500 housing units in the Puget Sound area over the last 20 years. In addition, we have raised well over $100 million in equity and debt capital to purchase 25 apartment communities, blah, 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 throughout the United States. So if I'm reading that correctly, what you've done over 20 years, you're asking us to believe in you to do half of that in the next 10 years. Because my understanding is you've articulated, you've done this for 1,500 housing units. You're asking us to believe that you can do 800 more. You did those 1,500 over 20 years, and you raised 100 million, yet when I believe the number you need to raise here is 200 million. So I'm just trying to understand, because keep in mind, the backdrop here is what I would term as a wildly successful planned community in Snoqualmie Ridge. Yes, it's had problems, but a wildly successful community. That's the backdrop. Okay, so the bar for success is extremely high. It was backed by a Wall Street, Weyerhaeuser, Quadrant, all those folks, right? This is different, I understand. But you're asking us to adopt a community that's a third the size of the Ridge, and you're asking us to believe in you that you're the people to do it. So help me understand how we go from 1,500 homes in 20 years to 800 more in the next 10.
Thank you. Putting together equity and debt capital to raise to finance over 2,500 apartment units is not trivial. And we are not proposing that we will take this all the way on our own. We will have national developer partners or a partner or partners, possibly the same ones who participated in Snoqualmie Ridge 1 and 2. Possibly not. Possibly others who are a better fit for the community, better fit for us, and have better ideas as we work through this together. Our job is to get it through annexation, and as we get through annexation, and prior to annexation, you will like to know who that builder or those building partners will be. And you can see their financial statements and their financial viability in publicly available statements that they file by virtue of being public companies. So I think that we will fund it through that, up through and to that point, and we will remain involved throughout the whole time. But we will have large, substantial partners of the same magnitude, order of magnitude that were involved in Snoqualmie Ridge 1 and 2.
So that was a perfect answer because you led me to the follow-up question I have in the next to last paragraph of that email. It says, by this time, we expect that our building partners will be in substantial control of the infrastructure and development and will be completely responsible for funding. So one of the things, again, using the backdrop of Snoqualmie Ridge, which again, I would say in many aspects has been wildly successful. What the handoff is what I'm concerned about. The handoff from Weyerhaeuser Real Estate to its builder and other builders that it ends up selling land to is one thing. The handoff from you guys to an undisclosed number of builders or things like that, because Snoqualmie Ridge was also completely funded. The development was completely funded by the developer, right? And I want to make sure that happens here and there's not somewhere lost in the handoff and we wind up with what Councilmember Topp was talking about, homes half built, roads half developed because there was some problem during the handoff.
So I think there are a couple answers to that, and I think I'm not exactly sure what the question is. When will the handoff occur? Is that?
So my question is that it was my understanding, and this is before I've only lived here 12 years, but my understanding of the handoff between Weyerhaeuser and its sister, whatever.
Thank you. So your question was in the context of Snoqualmie Ridge 1 and 2, which had a substantial partner. It was a one single landowner. The whole thing was sort of prepackaged and still took a very long time. That's unique. That's unique in our country. It's unique in any community. In most cases, the building partners, the builders, the large national builders generally do not take on annexation projects. They rely on developers like us to take those on, and that's what they do. They come in and take over midway through. If you would look at any of those, and this is Shea, William Lyon, Polygon, D.R. Horton, if you would look at, and they disclose in their financial statements and their public filings what their projects are. The large majority of their projects are developed in exactly this way, where they're purchasing from a developer at the point when it's been annexed and there's a developer agreement that's in place, and that's when they take over and bring in the big substantial resources that are necessary to build out the infrastructure and to build the houses and take them all the way to marketing and final occupancy.
So last related question, because you keep leaving me to do questions. So you talked about how annexation is hard. The big builders don't get into that. So what experience with annexation does your group have?
We have the team, our professionals are the very team that worked on Snoqualmie Ridge 1 and 2. We have the land use attorney.
Right, I understand, but that was easy annexation, right? That was one landowner. You just told me that was pretty easy.
Well, this is new territory for a lot of us, and the builders will participate with us. And so this is why I think it's a unique opportunity. It's a unique opportunity to work together and to talk about the issues and to figure out the things along the way. There will be give and take. It's a big decision for Snoqualmie, and it's a big project for us. And so I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to make something out of it.
Councilmember Sundell, I wanted to add that all of the things that Mr. Matisic has been saying about how you hand off and bring in the developers, we would expect all of those things to be addressed in the development agreement. In fact, for Snoqualmie Ridge 2, the development agreement was very clear about what were the master developer obligations, what were the builder developer obligations, when you could get released from your obligations, what kind of bonding requirements were necessary. So we would expect a similar type of infrastructure, documentation infrastructure that would clearly set the rules of the game and hold everyone accountable for the stages within that, including signing up whoever the builder partner would be as one of the master developers.
Thank you. All right, with that, Council, I'd like to open it for public comment, and again, this is just for the council and the developer and the staff to respectfully, listen to your comments. It's not for, the sake of time, just keep moving quickly. We have 23 signups, and I know there was a few people that trickled in late. Is there anyone else that did not have a chance to put their name or address on the sign-up sheet that intends to or would like to speak tonight? If you could raise your hand now, please. All right, with that, I'm going to allocate 2.5 minutes each. That should put us just about an hour between people. Thank you. With that, I'll start with Paul Billington, and you guys put yourselves in the same year. I don't know if you're speaking as a duo. Paul Billington and Deanna Billington. Paul, are you speaking on behalf of the both of you, or?
Yeah, Deanna's not.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Paul Billington, my wife Deanna. We've lived now in Snoqualmie for 13 years. Deanna's a property manager, has been for 35 years, and I've been for the last 15 years, I've been a real estate agent. I have had many clients that have reached a higher demographic now. We're all baby boomers and reaching mid-65 to mid-60s to 70s. And we're looking for homes that are more conducive to, single floor, smaller homes, and those homes just don't exist anymore around here. Providence Point, and Trilogy, and up there on Talus, Timber Ridge, basically all sold out. And with what we have here, the 800 units that would be available, they'd be in high demand. We have many people that would be moving to the Snoqualmie area, bringing more taxations, and more business for the businessmen. We're very much in support of it. And I won't go for a full 2.5 minutes. I'm pretty much done. So thank you.
No one should feel obligated to have. All right. Thank you, Mr. Billington. Joel Edwards. And again, I feel to mention this time that you don't necessarily need to say your address, since we do have those all written down for the sake of time. Joel, is that 375th?
375th. I'm on the corner of 86th and 375th. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council members, thank you. So a lot of this has gone over my head, probably because I haven't really researched as well, probably like most folks, maybe in this room or in the community. But I'm catching up. That's my problem. If we were talking about healthcare, I probably could offer a more fair dialogue. But